Hello and welcome to the Warp Shelf. I'm Frank Duran.
I'm John Vasquez.
And today, it's Halloween. No, I'm just kidding. It's October, but it's Halloween season. It's basically, if you know this show, you know we're big fans of horror. And you know that every, last October and now every October, we're going deep. Yeah, look at that dope ass shirt. Look at that fucking dope ass shirt. Look at that. If we could zoom in, you could, but you can zoom in on your own browser. You can see his nice shirt. We love horror. We do Horror Up every October here in on the Warp Shelf. In my house, we do it. We always watch like as many horror movies as we can possibly fit in.
Yeah, just fucking gorge on them. I've brought up several times, especially on Filthy Casual episodes, about like the 30 plus movies I do with my buddy Alex every year.
Yeah.
In fact, after I finish recording this, I'm gonna go get a haircut and we're gonna fucking get started.
So he's basically watching movies all day because we just watched Dr. Sleep to kick off the season to really get us into the mood. And what that means is that we're doing a retrospective look at the classic Stanley Kubrick, The Shining, and then we're taking a deep dive today into Dr. Sleep. Yes. So it'll definitely be more about Dr. Sleep than it will be about The Shining. But of course, you kind of have to go deep on The Shining.
Yeah, without talking about The Shining. So let's start with The Shining.
Yeah. So I mean, come on. This is the movie that makes some people believe that film is a fucking art, guys, because it literally is one of the most like bone chilling just it creeps you out like to your core, and it makes I've heard a ton of film students before and other filmmakers say that The Shining was the one that made them believe that like movies could make you feel something like really crazy, you know, like and
have you ever read the book?
I have not. I remember my grandparents had the book on the shelf, and I remember being like, that's so fucking huge. It was like you know, where it was just like, I don't know if I'll ever read that.
I've seen more Stephen King adaptations than I've read Stephen King books, but I have read The Shining and I've read it.
Really? I've actually read more Stephen King books than I have seen movies. I mean, obviously there's a fuckload of movies, but he's got a shit ton of books. So it's one of those things
I see challenges all the time where like I get to meet new people just like, man, I have a bucket list. I'm gonna read every Stephen King book. It's like, good luck.
Yeah, good fucking luck.
You gotta go at a certain pace because this motherfucker's pumping out like 4 new ones a year. So
yeah, you might as well just watch every Nicolas Cage movie. Like, come on, that's a more attainable goal than reading all the Stephen King books. There's a fuckload of them, and basically. Yeah, no, I've never read it. Do you? But you and what do you think of the book?
The book is good. I had seen the movie first.
Oh yeah,
in fact, I usually approach most things in that attitude, where it's just like if it's a popular movie or something, I've probably already seen it and maybe not have gotten to read the book. But it's almost refreshing to read the book afterwards because you go in with no like preconceived notions of how you want this to be.
True,
and
very
you get to
true.
kind of judge the movie on its own merits.
You don't just sit there like probably Stephen King did and go, "What are they doing to my baby?
What have they done?"
Because if you don't know, Stanley Kubrick bothered Stephen King for a long time to adapt The Shining, and then when he finally got it, he kind of took complete control and did whatever he wanted. It's not like now where Stephen King is involved with every Stephen King freaking adaptation, you know, like he's like involved with every single one. He's brought in, he's consulted. Like it's definitely one of those things where they respect him more now, and they
that's definitely true.
That's true, and I feel, and maybe that's because of The Shining, but it's also because he had to kind of take that power position after this because the Shining was so not what he wanted.
The Shining is an interesting conundrum, and I still see people like sort of fight about it if you're more of a Stephen King fan versus a Stanley Kubrick fan, because sure, there are some changes that I get why why they rubbed Stephen King the wrong way, especially because The Shining is one of his more personal stories.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that it was basically the therapy book he wrote to like quit drinking. So there's like a lot of him in there.
Yeah, in the book.
And the whole point of like Jack Torrance's journey by the end of the book specifically is that he does redeem himself by the end, and he doesn't let his demons conquer him. And the movie is just like, nah. So I could see why that would like kind of hit him personally. But
where he's
the
like,
Shining
wait,
movie is also one of the greatest films ever made. So you're like,
yeah,
which is why it was interesting from the jump going into Dr. Sleep, because Mike Flanagan had said that like we're gonna reconcile the two. And I'm like, how? That's a very interesting thing.
No, and I want to say that you've been bothering me to watch this movie ever since it came out and you saw it. I was kind of like, how do you make a sequel to The Shining? Even when Stephen King was like, I'm writing a sequel to The Shining, I was like, what the fuck are you up to? Like, what are you doing? And for them to be, but the thing that gets me, and the thing that I've intrigued of ever since the beginning, is my love of Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know my love of Ewan motherfucking McGregor. That man is so damn handsome and so damn good at acting. I don't give a fuck what you say. The man's incredible. The man's
doesn't
incredible
matter
all the
how
time.
disheveled you try to make him look. He just looks like Obi-Wan Kenobi with some bedhead. You can't make him look not handsome.
They like really tried in this movie to be like, look, he's a beat down alcoholic, basically a homeless man. And you're like, look at those baby blues. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, look at them. But like to be fair, Ewan McGregor does a fantastic job in that movie. So it definitely it was the thing that got me to watch this, and then it was like, oh, he's doing a fantastic job.
I was interested, and I still haven't read Dr. Sleep. That is something I'm going to get to.
Okay.
But it's one of those things where like the conceit of it interested me, because I remember when the book was being advertised, like I actually went to a Barnes and Noble like when the book like the first week the book had come out, just because I was there for something else. And I see it's like, oh hey, a new Stephen King book, that's cool. Dr. Sleep, that's an interesting one. And then it says like the sequel to The Shining. I'm like, what?
Yeah, what you say? What the fuck you say?
What? And then I like looked up the premise. I'm like, huh, well that's different. That's probably a good thing. I like that it's just like, okay, older Danny Torrance.
Yeah,
it's going in a very different direction. We're sort of like building upon the foundation, but also doing it's very like sequel novel, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
In the same way that we brought this up in the Exorcist 3 episode, where it's just like, oh, it ties back, but it's different.
It's different.
This is its own story.
And I think this is kind of interestingly like The Exorcist 3. Go back, listen to our Exorcist 3 episode, one of our best episodes. I don't mean to brag or nothing, but it's a good one. And what but what I'm saying by that is exactly what Deshaun's saying, is that it's refreshing that they go a different route but still tie it so closely to the original movie and novel. Like they really dig into the original movie and novel without being the same thing, which is like, oh, thank God.
In a way where it can be from what I've heard, like a relatively faithful adaptation of the book, but still also be a sequel to Kubrick's version of The Shining. That was almost more interesting than the way the movie was being advertised, because it looked good and I wanted to see it.
But because if you break it down, it's a sequel to an adaptation but it's also a sequel to the original material.
Yeah, the source material is a sequel to the source material, but The Shining is such a popular movie that we're making a sequel to it movie-wise, but we have to change things because the movie adaptation changed things, so we can't make it too faithful because the Kubrick film is too iconic. So just that story and that just air surrounding it of just like, I found a way to reconcile the two. I'm just like,
you're crazy. Yeah, you're like, you're fucking crazy.
But let's see.
Well, let's see. So, I mean, not to get deep on The Shining, but like what makes The Shining work and why most people walk away with something is I don't often call movies this, but it's a chiller. It fucking sinks into your bones, chills there, and freaks you the fuck out. It's not
so... It is so stereotypical like Kubrick, like cold and clinical and just bone chilling in the best way possible.
And it literally just like it unsettles you, and that's what makes it work. And I think that Dr. Sleep actually gets a lot of that like unsettlingness going on. They not in. It's more the actions of the things that are hunting down everybody that that I don't know what you fucking call them, but like
I know I think they were just referred to as like the group is called the Knot, like the True Knot,
yeah,
and then they're called energy vampires. That's like the clinical terms
clinical terms
King uses for them is energy vampires.
Stephen King's like, of course it's vampires, motherfucker. I'm the king.
Yeah,
I'm the king of vampires,
like
motherfucker.
It's just like the fucking things from Dreamcatcher. It's just like, oh yeah, the shit weasels. You're like, God damn it, Stephen King.
Oh yeah, the shit weasels. Fuck me. Okay, I haven't seen Dreamcatcher, but I have to.
It is weird. It's a weird one.
I'll have to watch that. But basically, I know a lot of criticism happens towards the Shining movie because a lot of people say it's boring. But like literally, there's the reason like the term slow burn was created for The Shining. Like literally, none of it is wasted. Not a single frame of that fucking movie is wasted at all.
No.
But it feels like, and it's trying to do this. It's trying to bring you the fuck inside of itself. In the same way that the hotel's supposed to be dragging them in, you know, is that the movie...
Yeah, it's supposed to invoke the same sense of like isolation and just stir craziness that the characters are feeling in you as an audience member.
In a perfect way, because a lot of movies do, they're like, oh, I'm going crazy, you know, I'm going crazy. But not many movies make you feel like you're actually going fucking crazy with him, you know, like that's, and of course, Jack Nicholson is absolutely astounding in this role. Yeah. Like no fucking question. There's a reason why Jack Nicholson's a goddamn legend forever for this movie, because this is iconic. This is a role that just literally no one else could have done.
And it was one of those things that like Stephen King had a problem with that from the jump. He's just like, because Jack Torrance has that like redemption arc in the book, he didn't like that Jack Nicholson was cast because it's like you can tell this guy is not on the up from the moment you see him. I'm like, yeah, the movie's going in a different direction. Like Jack Torrance in the movie is, even before he goes like crazy, is a piece of shit.
Is a piece of shit. Yeah, no, and they kind of like hint at that like several times, and you know, like, and that's not, and I love Dr. Sleep not trying to like romanticize him in any way, you know, like not being very like unflinching. How any son feels when a father has truly failed them. It's unflinching. It's not even like, you know, like it's unyielding, you know, like it's not, it's an anger that's unbeknown, you know, like that you don't know you had, and then it's like, like, and I think that that's what they get so right in this movie. Is like,
there's some dad stuff in both
how
of
they
flicks.
failed him. Yeah, how he failed him, you know, like, and I think that's what's so great about Dr. Sleep is that they're able to like actually have Danny sort of process what the fuck was going on, you know, like in a sort of a real way. Like
that whole scene where he gets his like 8th year like token for sobriety. I saw you rubbing your eyes.
Oh, yeah, shut the fuck up. I don't give a fuck what you say.
I saw you pulling your glasses off and itching your eyes. I'm like, oh boy, here come the dad stuff. Oh no, Lord, it's coming.
Oh, but come on, give fucking Ewan the fucking nomination for that scene though. Like seriously, like that was fantastic. And that's really the other crazy thing that's going on here is that you have a leading man of Ewan McGregor. You literally have to compete with the leading man like energy of Jack Nicholson, you know, like, and I think he does a great job here of really like being his own, but getting that like energy across, you know, like the whole
Yeah.
time. I
And it
think it
helps that the
really
last time we
flies.
saw Danny was really, really young, so there's not really anything you can point out to be like, it doesn't seem like that kid anymore. So it's like, well,
Yeah.
he isn't that kid anymore, and after a traumatic experience like that, probably not would have not turned out the way you would have thought.
Yeah, right. You're like, yeah. I really think that Kubrick there's stories on stories of the shit he like pushed these actors through to make The Shining, like constantly pushing them hard to try to get a take after take. He did it.
Yeah,
He's known for it.
120, 140 takes for that scene going up the stairs that everyone likes. Just
Yeah.
fucking pushing Shelley Duvall to the brink, which is really fucking sad in hindsight, especially if you've looked up like where Shelley Duvall is in her life now.
Yeah, it's one of those things that like the kind of madness that is in The Shining. You can tell Kubrick understood it in almost too personal of a way. You know,
people.
like
I've heard like critics and scholars like talk about Kubrick in that they say that they make the joke that like Kubrick was just as much of a scientist as he was a filmmaker.
yeah,
Just like all of his films have that like clinical, sterile coldness to all of them
and
in a good way.
preparedness, like the
Yeah.
absolute like I said in our Parasite review, the absolute like auteurness of the like every little thing on the frame is thought out and has been pushed out of his fucking skull. It seems, you know, like and it just seems so Kubrick, and that that takes is insane, you know, like, and I think that nobody else could have gotten what The Shining is, and I think that's kind of the problem with Dr. Sleep, is that nobody can truly match that energy, and they had to go another direction. So that's it's what makes Dr. Sleep work, but also you're kind of like, well, this is not the same thing, you know, like,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
like,
it helps that the book just went in a different direction, but also you have the advantage in retrospect of like the changes that the book and that the Shining had made to the book,
yeah,
because you have elements like I had said while we were watching it. At the end of the book, the Overlook burns down. The whole bit with the boiler room and stuff, that's the end of the Shining
yeah,
novel. That's the like redemption thing. The boiler room blows up and the Overlook burns down, etc. We didn't do that in the movie, so the Overlook is still around.
yeah,
And while in the Doctor Sleep book, they do go to the spot in Colorado where the Overlook used to be, because it still has like that energy, and that's where they
yeah.
have the final showdown. It's still just on top of a mountain because the Overlook is gone. Whereas in the movie, because you didn't burn it down, we can actually fucking go inside.
Which I mean, obviously, we couldn't talk about this review without saying how much of like a film school nerd project this must have been
Oh,
to
yeah.
recreate the Overlook Hotel. Like
Watched
it's
all the
insane.
making of stuff on this sucker, and you can see Mike Flanagan just geeking out when he's like going through like the set, having to like recreate the Overlook, and he kept making jokes. I'm just like, it's hard to be like a serious, pragmatic filmmaker like living in the Overlook Hotel and not just geek out about it. I just want to live here.
I just want to. I know it's wild because I think only Ready Player One has astounded me like that, where you're just sitting there going, "Oh my god, they actually recreated the Overlook Hotel." But this
haven't seen
this is
Ready Player One, so
this is crazier. This is 10 times crazier than that, because you can tell some things are CGI in Ready Player One. And that's just like obviously Stephen King just being like, "Fuck it, like we could just put this part in green screen." Yeah, Spielberg. What did I say?
You said Stephen King.
Oh
We're
my
talking
god,
about two
so many
Stevens
Stevens. Steven Spielberg was like, yeah, "I'll just make that CGI." You could tell everything in the Doctor Sleep is there. It's fucking. They made it. It's physical, and I'm just like, "Fuck, man!" Like, Jesus Christ, that's an incredible project. Yeah, seriously, they put
If I remember correctly, I think this was in the behind the scenes stuff. Like, obviously that set isn't around anymore.
yeah, they should
So
have
it's not
kept
like they
it.
could use assets. So they had to use like behind the scenes photos and stuff like that. I think they actually got materials from Vivian Kubrick, Stanley
Wow.
Kubrick's daughter, for like photographs and stuff like that, so they could like get as much material as possible to recreate it properly.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that because
And they did actually ask Jack Nicholson if he wanted to come back. They were gonna like bring him in and de-age him. If not, then just bring him in as a cameo at the very least.
Yeah.
But he said no because Jack Nicholson kind of just quietly retired.
Yeah. No, he kind of
Yeah.
just faded
He hasn't
out.
been in movies in a bit. He just kind of like did it quietly.
He just
didn't make
kind
a
of
big
goes
deal
to
of it.
basketball games, and I mean, the man's still sitting on shit tons of Batman money. What the fuck can you blame him for? Like, he's got one of those crazy. He had one of those crazy deals for Batman where it's like the George Lucas thing where he has parts of the toy sales or something.
Yeah, and
something
even
stupid.
in his last few movies, it's not like he went like the Bruce Willis route and started like phoning it in. He was always giving it 100%.
No, absolutely, and I think Jack Nicholson,
like
is
if he
one of
wants
the
to
greats.
rest, hey, you put in the work.
Exactly, he's one of the greats. He's one of the absolute.
But that is an interesting thing that we did. That the fact that we didn't go the de-aging route and we all just had stand-in actors instead who resemble the parts, which is almost kind of refreshing because we don't get that as often anymore because we've gotten so big into the de-aging.
Yeah,
thing.
I do worry. People like in bad faith be like, it's stupid because it makes Doctor Sleep a knockoff because they couldn't get the people back, and you're just kind of like, dude, that movie was in the 70s. Like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, there's no way you're getting Shelley Duvall back.
Yeah, right.
Jack Nicholson was going to be tough. Scatman Crothers died years ago, so
yeah. What were you gonna do?
If you're gonna have someone replace Scatman Crothers, why not get Carl Lumbly?
Yeah, he was.
Can we just put Carl Lumbly in just more shit? Like,
yeah,
he's so good in this. He's so good in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. He's motherfucking Martian Manhunter.
Right. You're like, come on. Lumbly. He's fucking awesome. He's so good. And I think he does such a good job here as Scatman. You know, like, it's just like, it's obvious he's doing such a good job of him.
Dick Halloran.
Yeah.
That's his. Yeah, Scatman Crothers is the actor's name. Dick Halloran is the character's name. I have to differentiate just because Scatman Crothers is such a fucking cool name.
Yeah, you're just like, what? So I mean, really, we just can't sing the praises enough of The Shining. It's creepy. It doesn't rely on jump scares. It's just
always a favorite.
It's horrifying. You know, like, that's really it. It's horrifying, you know, like it's.
And what's good about it is, like, even though it's very clearly like, this is a fucking ghost story. Like, for a little while you could have the thing of just like, is this really happening, or is Jack just going? Is Jack just having cabin fever and they're all just kind of going nuts? But by the time you get to the climax, you're like, no, there's straight up fucking ghosts in this place. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But it's done so well because we've talked about this just in private a million times. Yeah. It's so hard to make a good ghost story. Ghost stories are so easy to be done.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's very true. And that's why I really enjoy Mike Flanagan is that the man knows ghost stories. The man's fucking good at them. I mean it. We don't often talk about sorry about that noise earlier. I by accident clicked on that on IMDb. They got too many fucking ads on this fucking thing. I'm just trying to scroll through this shit. But, like, we have not. I'm sure we'll do an episode on Midnight Mass at some point because it's one of the
potentially.
bigger.
But I still didn't even finish Bly Manor. It wasn't it wasn't because I disliked it. I just didn't get around to finishing it. But I really like Hill House as someone who, like, really likes that original black and white version of The Haunting. Hates the 2000s one, and then this is a much better return to form.
I think Mike Flanagan is one of the best horror directors we have. And really, he's got some really good ones at the belt. Oculus is actually surprisingly good.
Yeah, Oculus is good.
Ouija Origin of Evil. I actually rewatched that the other day. Not very deep movie, but he still makes it scary. You could tell he was like, I guess I'm working with what I'm fucking working with here, but like
Yeah.
he really fucking brings it there. And yeah, Gerald's Game is great, but Haunting of Hill House and Bly Manor fucking I don't that I don't know. Bly Manor fucking it might be one of the best ghost stories I've ever seen, you know? Like I mean, obviously The Shining's probably the best, but like Bly Manor fucking like
But it's
I
just
was
one
like
of those things where
wow.
like you clearly choose someone who like knows this genre and has like a
Yeah.
fascinating just
Ghost
an
stories
outright
are
respect.
hard though.
Yeah.
Ghost stories are
They're tough.
hard. People all the time are like, "Oh yeah, 13 Ghosts is a good movie." And I'm like, "Shut your fucking mouth." Like
13 Ghosts is good bad. It's fun to watch. 13 Ghosts is one of those things where I would love to actually see someone reboot that because there are a lot of great ideas and just buried up in a bunch of bullshit.
I think a lot of movies that suck but have good ideas, people latch on to as cult classics, and you're just like,
That's
no,
true.
this movie's
Yeah.
fucking bad.
Hey,
It
to
just
be
has
fair,
some good ideas.
Horror fans are very forgiving.
Yes,
we
so
put,
true,
we
though.
put up with a lot of shit. Just
Well,
like, we're pretty easy to please.
If you're forgiving a horror fan, you will absolutely love this. Like, no, if you're like looking for a next like great horror movie, this is Doctor Sleep is it. You know,
Yeah,
like
Dr. Sleep is very good.
It's very good. So we'll sing the praises of The Shining as we continue on through Doctor Sleep, but let's really fucking get into Doctor Sleep, because I think that it's surprising. I think that's really the number one thing for me is that it's not what I expected from a sequel. It's kind of like that kind of a superhero story in a weird way.
Yeah, it's got that vibe.
Like, it's got that vibe because now Danny's older with The Shining, and it's kind of in a weird way the Into the Spider-Verse story, not Into the Spider-Verse, but the original Spider-Verse story with Dan Slott, like that these like endless ageless hunters are just going around sucking the souls out of Spider-Man. But here they're going around sucking the Shining out of, or the steam out of out of everyone. What I like about this movie is it gives you the rules of the Shining, of the steam, of all this stuff without it feeling like it's sitting there fucking explaining a bunch of shit to you, you know?
Yeah.
Like it really does a great job of being like, here's a logical power system that we're working with here. Here's how this all works, and it doesn't feel like you're sitting there like listening to a power system of some sort, you know? Like,
yeah, it also just feels distinctly its own flavor to the point where you're so invested, like, at least in my case, especially the first time, I was so invested with the story and just the direction that they had taken it that by the time they did start to build up to, like, going back to the Overlook, I'm like, oh, shit, I mean, I actually don't need it. I'm kind of happy here, but if you want to go to the Overlook,
no, I agree.
Sure.
I felt like it was a huge fucking cherry on top. I was already like, wow, this was great. I had a good time. And then they're like, and then when we paused the movie together, and we were like, oh, there's 30 minutes left. I was like, how is there 30 minutes left? And then they were like, we're going to the Overlook, and I was like, oh, that's how. I was like, okay, here we go. But obviously, guys, fucking spoilers. If you are this far fucking into this review, sorry, guys. It's pretty self-evident. We're talking spoilers for this fucking movie because it's 2019, so I probably should have seen this movie already. So it's a little bit behind, and obviously spoilers to The Shining because fucking 76. And guys, if you're listening to this podcast and you haven't watched The Shining, I don't often say this, but literally stop the fucking podcast and watch The Shining. It's October now. Fucking do yourself the favor and listen to it.
I have
watch
a friend who's never seen The Shining, which is really weird to me because he loves horror. Like, he's seen a lot of horror movies. So really? Like, how did you miss out on The Shining?
That it's like people not seeing The Exorcist. You're like, you literally look up the best horror movies. Like, you start watching horror movies and you're like, this is fun. I like this horror genre. You're like, I better look up what the best ones are. There's gonna be two on top. Two. It's fucking The Shining and The Exorcist.
Yeah.
That's it. That's that. Like, it's fucking actually kind of crazy. You're kind of like, fuck, that's not great. You know, like, I do love going to IMDb's top 250 top rated movies, and then I change it to horror to check, you know, how the horror genre's doing. It's got 4 boys in here. It's got 4 boys. Top 1, Psycho. Second one after that, at 52. Well, so 37, Psycho, 52, Alien, 63, The Shining, and The Thing at 161. So Exorcist isn't even on the fucking list. It's not even in the top 250. I'm sure that's some Christian bullshit where they've gone and bombed it.
It's
like
the devil's movie.
It's true though. Like, some great movies get fucked on these systems because because people will review bomb them. And first off, mind your goddamn business with review bombing. I'm not going over to God's Not Dead 2 and writing terrible reviews on your fucking thing. I'm just going to rate it badly and get the fuck out of there. I'm not going to sit there fucking being like, okay, this was awful. Which I've seen God's Not Dead 1 and 2, and holy fucking shit, one of the worst things ever put to film ever. It's astounding. But beside the fucking point. But like, exactly, like, the atheists aren't going on to your Christian movies and downgrading them all. You guys are going around to the Satan movies, and you think you're taking them down. You're like, oh, there's Satan in that movie. I'll fucking shut the fuck up. Let Exorcist be. But there's a reason why The Shining's on there, and I think Dr. Sleep, I don't know if it's funny because it is a horror film. It's a horror film, but it's kind of an action a little bit.
Yeah,
and
it's
got
also like an action. It's like a supernatural action thriller too.
Yeah, in a wild way, because like the part that literally made me like gasp out loud was the literal gunfight at the end. I was like, holy shit.
We're just having a fucking gunfight. But it's also kind of refreshing. It's just like, shit, how are we supposed to fucking take down all these crazy ass energy vampires? Dude, just get a fucking gun. And
let's fucking shoot them.
Let's just fucking shoot them.
I love that though. You're right. Like, there's so much logic going on. We said that during our watch here, is like, Danny acts like a very logical and a person this pretty much the whole time, other than obviously when he loses his mind at the hotel at the end. But he's pretty logical the whole time. It makes some pretty smart decisions, and we kept being like, how are we supposed to make a horror movie if he's gonna act smart?
Yeah, how are we supposed to fucking get the plot going if these characters aren't stupid?
And really, that's what I think one of the great parts about this movie, is that it is, it's actually kind of logical, and they make some a lot of sense. Like, I love her coming up and him being like, isn't it weird if a 40-year-old dude is hanging out with a 10-year-old, and she immediately has the exact excuse that you're my Uncle Dan, and like, and of course the dad going to beat the shit out of him, and Dan being like, please, to show him, you can't just tell him, you gotta show him.
Yeah. He's not gonna believe it vocally, just show him.
Like, it's so there's a lot of like real logical choices here, and any horror movie fan will love that, because everybody hates people making bad fucking decisions in horror movies. Like, it's the worst thing, just making logical bad decisions, like. And I think Dr. Sleep is actually quite like logical in a lot of ways. Like
the A to B all pretty much makes sense every time, even when like Abra's doing like crazy stuff that's like going to put her in danger. You can understand where she's coming from. It's just like, no, fuck these guys for killing kids. I have the power to take them down.
Yeah, no, I kind of like that attitude going on too. It's kind of got like a Van Helsing thing going on, where she's like, nah, fuck these guys. Like, she's like, no. fuck them. I will kill them. They are terrible. They've done terrible things for years and years and years, and we need to stop them. Like, I actually really like that attitude instead of like, oh no, what do we do? You know, like it's a lot of waffling in movies, and there's no waffling in this fucking movie.
There is a thematic through line in that of just like Danny telling him just like, no, don't shine, don't let people in, just like keep quiet, don't make a fuss, don't draw attention. And it's just the idea. It's just like, no, you show how special you are. You fucking go out there and kick that ass.
He kicked that ass. I really do like how powerful she is in this movie. Abra. I think it's pretty fucking. It's actually pretty cool. Like, you know, because The Shining is kind of scary because of how powerful Danny is, you know, like, and then to be the next step up of Abra is like, oh shit. I also love the ending, the almost like Thanos like line to Danny where she's like, where Rose the Hat is like, who are you? You know, like, doesn't even know who he is, and she's been fucking up her life.
I don't even know who you are.
I don't even know who you are. We haven't even brought up Rose the Hat. Absolutely steals this movie.
God.
Fantastic.
Fucking Rebecca Ferguson is so goddamn good in this.
So damn good in this. Like, holy shit, is she good in this?
I'd already seen her in other stuff, and she was good, but she's so good in this that I'm like, anytime she's in something, I like immediately like pay a little more attention.
Right? Oh, she's Jenny Lind from The Greatest Showman. Oh, that's where I knew her from.
Yeah, she's gonna be Lady Jessica in Dune.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that this movie even says it. They're like, she's the what's her name says to her, "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen," and you're just like, and
no lies detected.
No lies detected. Like, it's one of those things where she's. It's wild. It's like, you know, like at first you're not immediately like, this woman's beautiful, and then you look at her and you're like, oh my God, this woman's beautiful. Like, you know, like it's a weird like moment, you know, like it's like, and I think that's why she's so effective as Jenny Lind in The Greatest Showman. You can see why you're like, oh, I could see why Hugh Jackman's throwing away his goddamn life, I guess. Like, but like, it's like, and it's kind of here too, where it's like, oh, the allure of this beautiful, gorgeous, fucking soul-sucking vampire, which is also what's so great about this is that Stephen King, I said it earlier, he's the king of vampires. Salem's Lot is one of my favorite fucking books ever. It's one of my favorite TV movies, you know, like, because it's not really a movie. It's a 2-part fucking TV thing, but it's a mini series, but it's one of my, I love that series, but I'm one of those guys that I'm like, the book is better though.
We're going to be reading it on our next book club batch.
Oh, good.
Because I want to chip away at all the books that we need to read to start the Dark Tower. So
there you go.
List. So every batch of book club, we're gonna like do one Stephen King book to just like cross it off.
Right, and so Stephen King's being like, "Oh, do you think Metaverse was my thing?"
Over, it feels a lot more welcoming. I'm like, okay, it's over. I know it's done. It had an end point, so this doesn't feel like
something that Stephen King will die and will never get a fucking ending to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a sort of Wheel of Time-ish where you're like, oh shit, what do we do? Like, and hopefully not Game of Thrones. Hopefully he fucking finishes it. But you know, I first off, yeah, Rebecca Ferguson is beautiful and also so good in this. And what I'm trying to say is that she's so good as that vampire, that like seductress, that like obviously you should trust me kind of energy, you know, like it's wild. They do such a good, it's such a blend here. Dr. Sleep is such a blend of literally the ghost stories of The Shining and literally a vampire tale, you know, like straight up like vampire shit, you know,
and
like
just the idea that there are beings out there that like feed on people who shine. And you're like, oh, We're really like kind of opening up the universe a little bit.
Yeah, right. You're like opening it up, and their explanation that the Overlook Hotel is a place that feeds on people. I was like,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where all the logic ties that they keep bringing in, like halfway through the movie, I was kind of like, is all this going to connect? I hope it all connects. All these random things they're throwing in here, all these random powers and stuff. And they were able to connect it all and make it work. And I was like, whew.
Yeah, they were able to provide a better context for the Overlook, but they also didn't go to the point where it sort of diminishes its ambiguity and like
Exactly.
mystique, which can be a real problem, especially with sequels.
Especially with over-explaining in sequels,
Yeah.
where they're like trying to find the reason why the evil, like, and that's always terrible to like try to
and
find.
most of the time,
them.
the answer is never going to be that interesting. Just
Yeah.
be vague about it. Let people come up with their own answer.
Exactly. And I think that Dr. Sleep does a great job of that, of being like, hey, it's our thing that works for this movie, but you can still be like, yeah, a ghost, a fucking ghost, like a place that feeds on people's minds, like, and souls. Like, it still works, and it still feels Kubrick-ish in that way, like where you're like, okay, that still makes sense with the movie, still hooks in, it doesn't feel like it's out there. The only thing that felt like a stomp on Kubrick this for Dr. Sleep was how many times they just bodied the fucking lady in the tub this movie. Like 3 fucking times they were like, we're gonna fuck up the lady in the tub.
Fuck up this old lady. Maybe that was just personal on like Mike Flanagan's part. Maybe that old lady really scared the shit out of him when he was young. He's just like, this is revenge.
I mean, it's an absolutely creepy visual of the kids walking into the bathroom with the old lady willingly and then closing the door. You're like, hey, man, no, please, God. And then to hear the old lady scream, you're like, oh.
This film really knows how to utilize its makeup, its setting, as well as its CGI, because there is plenty of CGI in this, but it's always used so well.
Oh yeah,
like
definitely.
you were freaking out over the effect that they use when the energy vampires die.
Yeah, that was actually pretty cool. Like, actually really cool. Because at first when I was witnessing it, I was like, so are they're pulsating to old? Like, and then like seeing it happen, I was like, fuck, so many Star Wars movies and other movies try to do that. They try to, that they're going to snap to super old, and they always do it gradual. And I like this like pulsating as they hang on to power that's going on. It's so interesting. You're like, shit. But I think the CGI here is actually really well used. And there's not like all the ghosts are practical, like all the ghosts that are there are practical, but the CGI is mostly used for it's funny because they use the CGI for a lot of the effects of showing how the shining is happening, of them like doing it. And it's so funny because that's the most Stephen King bit to me, is that he always describes this stuff this way, of it flying through the air, like all this, like he puts all this description into what's happening like that. And you don't usually get to see it in a lot of movies, like, and that, but they were able to visualize like Stephen King's kind of movement through the mind, sort of, that is going on here, that I think even it doesn't get super well with one chapter and chapter 2. They I feel like this, it almost gets that like mind thing even almost better,
Yeah, that's sort of like psychological aspect to it.
Exactly. It's surprising,
and like it especially gets very esoteric in the book in a way that's really hard to film.
Yeah. In the original book, you're saying? Like, yeah, it's exactly. They always said The Shining would be impossible to do, like, and then Stanley Kubrick was like, I do the impossible, and that's what he did.
like the term unadaptable should not be a term anymore. Like, we're well past that. Every time I hear someone say this, like, oh, it's just impossible to adapt. Like, no, nothing's impossible to adapt anymore. It's just a matter of difficulty.
Right? Yeah, we just you gotta try your hand at it, like see how far it goes. I mean, here's hoping for Sandman. That's basically, I can hear that's what you're saying, is that Sandman, it's got to be good. It's got to be good.
I'm really not that worried about Sandman, to be honest.
No. After you have the audiobook, you're like, I'm good.
No, it was literally the first season of American Gods.
Yeah.
The first season of American Gods was so good, and when they were doing the more esoteric shit in that, I was just like, oh yeah, we can do Sandman now. It does not seem that hard anymore.
It seems doable. Let's do it.
Once you do the bit in American Gods where a woman swallows a man through her vagina,
you're
and
like,
the fucking show did it and did it well. We did it. It's like, you know what? Suddenly Sandman doesn't seem that difficult anymore.
I'm sure it's endlessly difficult. This is one of those like Herculean effort adaptions going in, and the same thing's going here for Dr. Sleep. This is a Herculean effort. I think that's one of the things I kind of appreciate the most about this movie is the absolute effort going into all this. You know, like the thought out process of everything, and the recreation of the hotel is just astounding. You're just like, fuck, dude. Like damn. But what now? Rose the Hat, I think, is such a good villain here.
Yeah.
Now, what works for you for Rose the Hat?
I think it is what you said before. That sort of just like alluring, you can trust me aspect, and the fact that it isn't about Flash with Rose.
Yeah.
Just like she just looks like a very attractive woman who wears a funny hat. She's very, very disarming.
Yeah. I like it a lot.
I know in the book there's like a little detail, which I get why they didn't do for the movie, where like whenever she feeds, she has like this fucking single tooth at the top of her mouth that like comes down, which is one of those things that like, yeah, I could see in prose why that like seems scary, but I can picture it in a movie looking really
kind of ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's definitely what happens with adaptations, is you have to kind of make those decisions. What doesn't work on film.
Such a nice change of pace, even compared to like, even if you've only seen Stephen King adaptations compared to like some of his other antagonists.
Yeah.
Like Rose is really nothing like Pennywise, but you have a very different sort of interesting, much more low-key villain that's fascinating to watch. It's one of those things where I would be interested to know about like the history of the True Knot in the past.
Right? You're like, what did they do before? I definitely want to call out Cliff Curtis in this. He's played Billy Freeman, or Danny's kind of only friend in this movie. I think he did such a fantastic job. For
such a small part like that like needs a convincing performance,
and he absolutely gives it. I felt that scene where he talks about the hunting the deer and then killing it. It's like, as somebody who has been in an accident with a deer and that's killed the deer, and I went back and looked to make sure the deer was dead because I didn't want to like have a half dead deer on the side of the road. You know, I was like, fuck, I'm gonna have to fucking kill this animal if I have to. I was like, fuck. But he was dead, which is just as horrifying. It was one of those images that will stick with me to the day I die, is that dead deer's face. And I was like, all right, cool, thanks for that traumatizing fucking everything going on here. But yeah, it was driving home New Hampshire late one night, bam, almost completely wrecked the car, but we were safe. But that deer was gone. But it's one of those things
Don't go to Canada.
Yeah, right. You're like, fuck,
fucking moose.
Right, take them out at the ankles. They fucking smash your car in half.
Yeah, fucking moose are gonna be taller than your car.
You'll just be dead because it'll fall over on you. You're like, fuck. And that can't happen. Deer can fucking kill you in a car accident. We were very lucky. But there's some truth in what he's saying there, is that like there's something absolutely horrifying about something slowly dying like that. You're just like, like that's just like, you're just like, fuck no, God. And the smell of death ain't nothing to fuck with. That is serious. And Stephen King loves bringing it up. It's his favorite thing to bring up the stench of death. He
loves the stench of death, and he loves killing children.
Yeah, he's like killing kids. Yeah, I think that's the number one thing about this movie that's makes it disturbing in the same way The Shining is that they don't give no fuck about no kids. They don't give no fuck about no kids. They just kill so many kids in this fucking movie. And I was just like, fucking hell. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, oh my God. What a crazy fucking, like some of the scenes. Like, I give it to Jacob Tremblay here in this. He's the kid that gets killed in this early on, who's the baseball boy. And oh my God. First off, great performance. Holy shit. So fucking too believable. You're like, fuck, kid. Jesus Christ. And he's he's quite the little actor himself right now, dude. Like, he was in The Room. He was in Wonder. He's the voice of Luca. Like, the kids going places is basically it, like he's fucking getting shit done. Oh, and he's also Robin and Harley Quinn. That's actually awesome. Oh man, he's so fucking good in that. Oh, and yeah, and he's in Good Boys. That's how I knew him, really. He's like the good friend in Good Boys, and he's very funny in that. I think that kid's going places. I think that kid's an absolute star quality and is putting the fucking work into these things.
Who else who's potentially going places is the actress who plays Abra. She's very good in this movie.
She was very good in this movie.
And apparently they had a long audition process for it too.
Yeah, she has not. She's only been in 3 things. What? Wow. A movie called I Can, I Will, I Did, then Dr. Sleep, and then Secrets of Sulphur Springs, which is a Disney Plus show that just started coming out. I have not seen it, but I'm sure that will.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the other 2 projects.
I'm sure that will keep her on the Disney Channel for the rest of her goddamn life. So, hey,
she can make it out. If Jodie Foster and Kurt Russell can make it.
No, I mean, no, this is money for the rest of her goddamn life is what I'm saying, is that they will probably play Secrets of the Sulphur Springs forever, like one of those things where it'll just be like, oh yes, money, thank you, again, every month for the rest of my goddamn life. And she's done it already, like, you're like, okay.
I know Mike Flanagan had said that, like, he's made the joke before that he's, like, begged Stephen King to do a 3rd Shining book, only because he wants to do more Abra Stone stuff. He's just like, write more Abra Stone stuff so I can direct a movie about it.
And I mean, yeah, that I'm down, is basically the kind of attitude you get from this. Is like, I'm down for that, like is they kind of hint at it at the end there where they're like, oh yeah, there's other people and we miss them, and there's other also energy vampires. They're out there, like, and this was just us, the true knot, like, and you're like, of course there's more vampires.
Yeah.
There's always more vampires.
It's a great line when Rose says just like, oh, I'm not the last one. I'm just the prettiest.
Yeah.
It's like that sultry line of just like, look at how pretty Rebecca Ferguson. But it's also just like, I'm probably one of the nicer ones.
Yeah, right. You're like,
there are more horrifying things out there.
You're like, oh shit. And now the fucking hotel's burnt down and Dan's gone. You're like, fuck, everyone's fucked.
Yeah, which was an interesting thing because that's not how. Like, I don't believe Danny dies at the end of
the book,
Dr. Sleep, but they did that to make up for the fact that they didn't kill Jack Torrance that way with the boiler room to sort of like redeem that moment and adapt it.
Yeah,
and also sort of like give Danny like his own arc.
One of those weird.
It's so weird adaptation. It's such an interesting adaptation,
and I think
a lot of red tape.
That's what makes this so compelling. I think that this is such a weird case.
They went into it with like sort of at a disadvantage. Like Dick Halloran as a character is in the book as like Danny's mentor because Dick Halloran didn't die in the book. But in the movie, he gets killed as soon as he comes back to the Overlook. So it's like, shit, what do we do? We'll have him be a ghost.
Yeah, we'll have him be a ghost. It'll work. Like, I do love that though. That Danny's like speaking to ghosts and stuff. It really works. It really does. I do feel like this movie's kind of segmented. I think that's one of the problems. The only problem I can probably point out with Dr. Sleep, other than it being like an action horror thriller instead, is that it is sectioned up into being like let us connect it to the movie. Here's Danny getting better, like here's, him dealing with his life, like here's like it's definitely very segmented, but not in a bad way. I'm not saying it's bad.
Like,
it's just
segmented, not fragmented.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Because you could have all these different things and you could feel thrown all
Like
over the place. And this is not a scattershot. This is a very focused. I don't know if it's got the fucking surgical fucking knife that Stanley Kubrick had, but and I think that's just not Mike Flanagan,
and it's also a case of like Doctor Sleep as a book being a very different story than The Shining was.
I do think Mike. I'll say it again. Mike Flanagan's the best man we got out here, guys. He's the best fucking. He's one of the best horror directors we got out in this biz right now. And I know there'll be a bunch of people in the comments yelling out different names. And
Ari Aster.
Yeah, I was about to say Ari Aster with Hereditary is. It's kind of one of those things that it's kind of amazing that Hereditary isn't in the top 250 on IMDb.
Watch Midsommar, Frank. When are you gonna fuck
when
yourself
I need
up?
maybe this year. Maybe it's this year.
It's time.
It's time to fuck myself up. I'm just nervous for that. That Ari Aster's he's just fucked, dude. Like
Hereditary fucked you and Mary up so bad.
Hereditary fucked me up, but no. It's the short, dude. It's the short we watched before.
I know the
that
short got
fucked
you
me up. That just I don't know. That sent a fucking chill down my spine that's never gone the fuck away. That
Hereditary did fuck with you too.
Oh,
yeah. I was watching your guys'
I'm not denying that.
Watching the movie.
I'm not denying that. I was that was an effective movie, and it's just like damn. And I think that's what a lot of people might say about this movie is it does feel different than The Shining, but you're kind of like shut the fuck up. Like it's a different thing.
Sort of in its core DNA.
Yeah, and it's what makes it good because
and it stands so well on its own. Like I said, that when you do get to the more familiar Shining stuff, you're just like, you know what? I actually don't need it. I'm glad it's here.
Yeah, I'm glad it's
here. But you know what? If you didn't, I would be fine.
No, I love the cat and mouse game of Abra finding Dan, but then of Rose trying to find them. I love that. I also hats off to the scene where Abra corners Rose in her room. I love that scene. It's so damn good. It's absolutely absurd scene with absurd visuals. It's done in such an effective way.
And it's a lot of like show don't tell. You only get that little bit of just like, I'm going to mock you. Look at you pitiful humans and your filing cabinets for memories. Like my memories, I've lived for so long. My memories are a cathedral.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, thanks for letting me know. And then we actually get that bit where she's fucking digging through her mind.
Digging through the cathedral. You're like, oh shit. Really, it's kind of an astounding moment. You're just like, wow, what a scene.
And plus, plus Abra in that scene is like also trying to be scary, and she purposefully has that emerald style hair from Ruby because they set up that she's a Ruby fan and she has the statue on her bed. It's not just a shot to set up that hey, kids like Ruby, I guess.
Yeah,
but we actually pay it off somehow.
Yeah, I thought that was wild.
That's the way she projects herself as to like a fictional character that she admires.
Right? I thought that was wild. I was like, holy shit. And is that can't be in the fucking novel, right? That's got to be a movie only
I doubt
thing. There's no fucking way that Stephen King is like, yeah, I fucking love Ruby, like enough to like put it in the fucking show. But who knows? Stephen King likes a lot of different media.
Maybe it was even a thing where like the actress playing Abra is a big Ruby fan and they like incorporated it into a film.
It's kind of cool.
Or maybe they're just conscious of like what kids like right now because Ruby's super popular.
Ruby's super popular. I know you're not a big fan, and I tried to get through it, but I stopped myself. But I enjoyed what I watched, but it wasn't like
mostly because I have a bunch of friends who are also into it who just kind of drag me into it, and it's just one of those things where like, it's visually cool, but the story is really bad.
Yeah, you're just like, okay. A lot of the stories like, I all right, but it's one of those things that teenagers, of course, this was like tailor made for teenagers, you know, like to spark that imagination and you know, like it really, I think they do such a good job of bringing Ruby into this and like working it in somehow. You're like, holy shit. Like, I wonder if Rooster Teeth took a fucking paycheck on that, you know, like I wonder if,
I'd imagine at least something small, because it's not even just like, oh, she has like a statue on her nightstand, and it's like sort of a blink and you'll miss it sort of thing. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. She's into Ruby. She's got like multiple posters in her room,
right? You're like, oh shit, they love Ruby, you know, like
but
no question.
But it also feels like genuine, like something a kid her age would like, as opposed to like some how we do fellow kids shit.
Yeah, where they're like into the Twilight Zone or something, and it would be weird or something like that, you know?
Yeah,
like,
or even something like,
which like Twilight Zone's fantastic, but like how many kids you know are like,
same thing with like Stranger Things, where like they have the poster of The Thing up in your wall. It's just like no fucking kid had a poster of The Thing.
Yeah, right.
In the 80s, that film did not do well enough.
That's so true, though. You're like, it's a great poster, but nobody had that. You're like, come on. I really can't say it enough. Ewan McGregor fucking sells this fucking movie. If he somehow embodies that, like, that young Danny while still being an adult, acting as an adult Dan. He's able to get that cadence down that young Danny has when he's talking. That's he brings into the character the whole movie. It's kind of astounding in a way, you know, like, because he gets that like that nuanced way of talking down. And I really think it sells this movie is that like it as like, yes, that is Danny, you know, like he does such a good job of incorporating just that little bit that the original actor is it Danny Lloyd? Is
Danny
the original?
Lloyd, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that the kid's name was Danny and then they named Danny. And you're just like, wow, that's a good coincidence. But it really, he does such a good job. It's what connects a lot of this to it. And yes, I think that they take steps to be their own thing, but they do such a good job of connecting it back to The Shining that Shining fans will not be disappointed.
Yeah, in a way where it doesn't feel like too ham-handed. Like, I agree with you in that one moment where Rose walks by just to see the bleeding elevator bit. And then she just walks away. That's the only moment where we're just like, you just put that in there just to put that in there.
Right. It was the only moment that, like, at least in Ready Player One, it was part of the challenge that the hallways would fill up with blood and they had to escape, you know, like, and all the monsters are trying to kill them while they're trying to escape. I mean, that's kind of the crazy part of Ready Player One. It's like, what if The Shining was cranked to 1,000 and was dangerous like that? And you're just like, oh. But I mean, it can't be said enough how painstaking the set design was on The Shining, and they still somehow got it perfect for this one, you know, like nailed it, just fucking nailed it.
Yeah, we have really just good set design even beyond the Overlook. We have like you were making a joke about like how fancy the fucking inside of like Rose's RV is and how comfy that looks, and then you also noted like the office looks just like the office from The Shining. They
nailed that though. Yeah. That I did look that up. They were doing that on purpose, that it was the same office, and they got it down.
And I even love the design of Danny's like loft, like his little loft apartment.
Yeah. Is it weird that feels so Stephen King, that whole like whiteboard and like everything?
The blackboard thing. Yeah, it's very simple, but it evokes like that tone. And you had said that like during the scene where they were trying to dig up the body, where you're just like, this feels so King, but it doesn't feel cold.
Yes.
Because that's Kubrick. Kubrick is very
cold. And I think that's one of the King purists will have against The Shining is it doesn't feel like Stephen King, you know, like Carrie feels like Stephen King, you know, like especially
Yeah,
Salem's
a
Lot
of
feels
those
like
early
Stephen
ones.
King.
Cujo feels very much like the book as well.
Pet Cemetery feels
Mhm.
like that feels like the most Stephen King thing ever.
But the Shining is very much just like, I'm taking this and now I'm making it mine.
Yes, and in a world where we got a shitty Pet Cemetery remake, and I will say that movie was shit. I did not like the changes they made. It does not improve anything. I didn't like what they did. This being good at all is fantastic, you know, like in a world where we get some bad Stephen King adaptations, it happens, you know, like, because we've had great ones. Can't all be fucking absolute fire from Stephen King, but you know, and that's not even his fault, you know, it's the adaptions, because obviously the ones they're adapting are fucking awesome, you know, like, but it's like one of those things that not every one of them is gonna be like, oh wow, great, and especially the recent ones. I
didn't see The Dark Tower because I haven't read The Dark Tower.
Oh my
but
god,
even just
dude!
seeing the trailer for that,
hold
I'm
on.
just like, I haven't read The Dark Tower. I know this movie is not The Dark Tower.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Stephen King on IMDb has 354 writing credits. What a fucking monster! What a fucking animal!
Dude, his fucking output is something I aspire to be. He talks about how he sits down like it's a 9-to-5 job and he cranks out 6,000 words a day.
What a fucking animal!
I'm lucky if I write all day and get 600.
Yeah, right. And you're just like, what the fuck? Yeah, I think that, yeah, of course there's some bad fucking Stephen King adaptions, you know, like not, and nowadays he does let a lot of people remake or do whatever they want, you know, like, but then he's involved with some like Castle Rock, which is very much like Castle Rock is very The Dark Tower, but not with all the action, you know, like, it's just
whole,
like
interconnected, like Stephen King stuff.
Universe.
But yeah, you had a pretty decent streak in like the 80s and 90s, because you have like Rob Reiner doing Misery, and you also have all the Darabont adaptations of the Stephen King stuff. We talked about that in the Darabont episode.
Yeah, and I do think It Chapter 1 is one of the better modern horror movies we have. I think Chapter 2 goes a little too hard in the CGI, and it's just adults fighting something that the kids could have fought, you know, like that's what kills that.
I do like It Chapter 1 a lot. I don't love it because I mean, a lot of the problems that some of the bigger problems that Chapter 2 has were problems in Chapter 1. They just weren't as big.
Yes, of course. Exactly. But then you have Netflix has been the reason why we've gotten a lot recently is Netflix is like, oh, Stephen King, you have a lot more novels we haven't adapted yet. And he's like, yes, I do.
Oh, yeah. Plenty.
He's like, plenty. That's how we got Gerald's Game, which is another Mike Flanagan. But then you have In the Tall Grass, and a lot of other ones that are coming soon, too. You know, like, you're just like, okay. We're getting some Stephen King.
Plenty of like novellas and short
stories.
Right,
and there's
like Shawshank was a novella.
Yeah, right. What's that James Franco one that's not a horror one?
11/22/63.
Right, that one. So it's like the man's crazy, you know. Like it's almost astounding how much he puts out, you know. Like, and I absolutely bow down to the man. But
we're
like,
getting a remake of Christine soon,
right?
Yeah, Brian.
I think
Fuller's
that's crazy.
Doing it.
You're like, okay.
You put Brian Fuller's name on it. I'm excited.
And obviously, guys, we talked about the Frank Darabont stuff in that episode, but like, come on, Green Mile's one of the best.
Green Mile, Shawshank.
One of the movies ever made. Shawshank's obviously one of the best movies ever made.
I know we had like talks about the ending.
Yeah, right. And there's there's literally 4 Stephen King shows going on right now with Castle Rock. There's also Chapelwit, which just came out, and also something called Strawberry Spring. And I think that's not all of them, because there's The Stand. Nope, that's over. The Stand's over.
Yeah, I was just about to say,
canceled.
Didn't they also just redo The Stand?
Yeah, but they canceled it. It only had 9 episodes. I don't know if that's the whole thing or if it's like they were like, oh no, we're not doing this. And they're doing Creepshow. I forgot about that. Creepshow's back.
Yeah, Creepshow's not bad. I've been
Yeah?
watching it. It's on Shudder.
Is it on Shudder? Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. I'm gonna do it this year. We're gonna subscribe to Shudder, so that way we can watch more horror movies. But guys, in the essence of you guys being able to watch more horror movies because it's October, thanks for listening in for this episode. Is there anything else, Deshaun? Is there anything else you want to say about
No,
Dr.
I think
Sleep?
I've pretty much covered it. This was one that was building for a while because I was just like, this movie's really good. It's really surprisingly good for a sequel to The Shining, which is a tall fucking order, and everyone should be watching it.
Yeah, I don't know if I finished the thought earlier about how disturbing it was that they were killing kids, but even the more disturbing, the sniffing up of their fucking essence. They were doing just disturbing, just gross on like it makes your fucking skin crawl.
It's like really sensual too. They're all like rubbing up against each other and making out and shit. And you're like,
oh God, it's disgusting. In such a you're like, oh yeah, this is straight up disturbing. They got it. They nailed it. This is straight
just
up
like
disturbing.
stealing the essence or a soul and just like becoming so enraptured by it. It'd be like it's like a modern sort of take on like, I'm gonna bathe in your blood.
Yes.
Something
God. Almost exactly, right?
Yeah, like that sort of thing. But that's a little passé now. So this is like a good sort of like modern equivalent.
What was that movie that I only remember her costume from it? What was it? Queen of the Damned, where they were taking the bath in the blood all the time. And of course they do it in Blade, but they do is it Queen of the Damned? Where she's
Queen
like
of the Damned. The only thing I remember about Queen of the Damned
is her outfit. Yeah, is her outfit.
Like that's a great performance in costume. That's the only thing good about Queen of the Damned. There's like the blood like nightclub stuff in Blade. There's a scene in Hostel 2 where a woman bathes in the blood.
There's lots of bathing in blood scenes, but yeah, this kind of gets that feel, and you're like, but yeah, I think the best way, and it's not a very good pitch of it. If you had to be like, yeah, it's got part Shining, part energy vampire, and all Ewan McGregor, like is a way to pitch it, but it's also superhero-y. Like
premise. It's a weird premise on paper.
On Peppa Pig. But it really, it's such a like. Only Stephen King could have wrote a whole novel about this crazy bullshit, like you're just like, oh, all right, okay. But really, this movie works. I think I'm surprised. I really do. Deshaun's been pushing me to watch for a while, and I'm glad we finally watched it and I'm glad I own it. I bought it today, so I'm glad I own it because
any other
it's good.
Movies that have been bugging you to watch that you just haven't gotten around to?
Oh, I'm sure
this was one of the bigger ones.
This is one of the bigger ones since it came out. You've been like, come on, no, you got to watch this one, and I agree. I should have watched this one beforehand because this was great. This was really something. And in a way that like, I'll be thinking about it for a bit. And not in a like, oh, it creeped me out, and I'll be thinking about the creepiness of that for a bit. But like just the everything going on,
just the ideas.
Yeah, lots of good ideas. But guys, thank you for tuning into this episode. Get ready for a lot more spooky stuff. We're gonna be doing a lot more coming out at you. Because we got 3 more episodes in October, so this is one of 4, and we're gonna do it up, and we'll let you in on some things so you can get prepared. So the little thing that we're gonna let you in on, a little bit of secrets, you can get prepared for. We're gonna do a Nightmare on Elm Street retrospective. We're gonna do all
just like
the
we
nightmares
did Friday last year.
Yep, and next year maybe Halloween. Who knows? Like
Halloween would be a fun one. It'd be tough to go through, but that would be a fucking discussion.
Yeah, I think
that's
a
lot of baggage there.
I think all of Nightmare is on HBO right now. So
yeah, it should be. It was last year.
I'm not excited to do 2 again. I'm not excited to watch Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
You know what you should do for homework though is watch the documentary about Nightmare 2.
Really? Yeah. No. I've heard that's actually fantastic. I've heard a lot.
That's also on Shudder.
Really? That's
Yeah.
okay. Now, time to sign up for Shudder. This podcast is not sponsored by Shudder, but god damn it, Shudder, contact us. We would love to be sponsored. Hell, we'd cover a lot more horror movies if we were sponsored by Shudder. Fuck me. It'd be like, oh, whoops, did another horror movie. Whoops. Which will be this month. You'll be like, oh shit, another horror movie. So guys, strap the fuck in.
Oops, there we go again.
Oops, I spilled all the horror movies. But guys, thank you for tuning in. You can check out our podcast on any podcast platform, but you can see our beautiful faces on YouTube. And you can subscribe, comment, like, make that algorithm move. Make it function. Make it creep forward slowly out of its grave. Really, I can't thank you guys enough for supporting the show. It really means a lot to me and to Sean. And if you want to see our stories, our daily thoughts on Twitter and Instagram, you can find Deshaun there as
Mod Karaika. You'll actually see me be posting on Instagram a lot because I always post like what movies I'm watching for those like 30 plus films with my buddy.
So if you guys want to keep up with him, go follow him on there, and you can follow me on there as Yupfrank, and I'll be posting some of that. I did pass over 100 movies for this year, so I'm feeling good. And it's October. There's some good stuff in the theaters, so might be going to some theaters for this month. Got to see some shit. But guys, thank you so much. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.
See you next time.